Hey development team, I'm Brian from Hygraph, and let's take a quick tour of Hygraph and its developer-centric features. Through this series, we're going to talk about GraphQL, our API Playground, various endpoints and token permissions, user permissions, webhooks, environments, our management and app SDKs, and remote sources for external data. First, let's take a look at the Hygraph API. Our API is GraphQL native and is generated by the content models created in our schema. So let's start there. Since the schema generates the API and the CMS interface, this is a good time to collaborate with your content teams to make sure you're both getting the most out of Hygraph. In this walkthrough, we're taking a look at an e-commerce shop schema and content. You can see we've got a lot of models. Each model is going to end up being a top-level key in our API and be fully queryable. You can see we've got blog posts, landing pages, navigation, product categories, and seller information. Let's take a look at what that means in our API Playground. If you're familiar with GraphQL, you'll recognize some of the staples of many GraphQL playgrounds. It's a modified version of the graphical interface. On the left-hand side, we have the Explorer and the interactive documentation. And on the right, we have an interactive query builder and playground interface. In this area, you can build out queries manually or use the Explorer to build them. Often I find myself using this interface to build most of my queries, and then I copy and paste it into whatever code base I'm using. Each model created gets a few queries built in. Let's talk about the products model that we had before. All we did was create a product model, and the API output of that is a product query, a product version query, a products query, and a product connection query. Product will allow you to select a single document. Product version will get a historical version from our built-in document versioning. Products get an array of products, matching a filter or all the products. And products connection makes pagination much easier by using the relay pagination specification. Let's construct a few queries that you're going to use on a fairly regular basis. We'll start with a query to get the information you might need to create a product list page. So we need to get a list of products, so we'll use the products query. And then from there, we need a few pieces of information from this. Theoretically, we would need a name, price, and a slug, as well as maybe an image. So let's get the name, price, and slug real fast, and then hit the play button and query that. So you can see we now have a products array that has the name, price, and slug included. Using this, we could construct a list of products, but we might want it to be a little bit more enticing than just static title and price. So we can also grab the image that is on this model as well. And you can see the product image is an array as well. It's a reference to multiple assets. And inside of that, we can grab each of them. So grab that real fast. And you can see that each product has multiple images, but this gives us the full size image. You can see if I select the width attribute on that, each of these is going to be relatively large. 3000 pixels is perhaps too big for a thumbnail. So instead, we can also use our transformation library and actually select the different types of transformations we want to put this through. We could go with a document transformation and format it into, say, PNG instead of a JPEG. We're not going to do that at this moment, but we can also resize the image as well, choose a fit type, and then also choose the width we want to be. Let's start with it maybe being a 5:4 ratio. So we can say like 500 pixels by 400 pixels, and then tell it what kind of fit we want. In this case, let's do a crop in on that. And now when we play that again, we have a new URL. And in this case, we can copy that, take a look at it, and you can see we have a 5:4 crop on this picture of socks. Now this works for all products, but what happens if you want only, say, a category page's worth of products? Let's get rid of our images real fast just so we can see things a little bit clearer. You can see that we also have a product categories key as well. And this is actually a reference to another model, which gets associated via a reference field. But you can see we can take a look at the category name for each of the categories associated with the products. In this case, the socks are associated with clothes, urban, new arrival, and accessories. So let's say we want to get only the clothing items for a clothing page. We can do that with a where argument, a where clause in this, where we can take a look and we can say all products where the product category contains the slug clothes. So we can come down to product categories and we can choose if it has to be on every category, none of the categories, or some. We'll do some for now. And we will take a look at the category slug, which is just the slug. You can see anything on that document is fair game for a where clause here. In this case, we want to take a look at the clothes category. So that works. And now we have fewer products. In fact, we have 1, 2, 3 products instead of, I believe we had 16 before. So that's how you can filter it down. You can filter it down on all sorts of different data in this view as well to get various types of configurations of your data. Then we might want to move this into, say, a paginated layout. Let's say we've got hundreds of products that match this. We could accomplish this with our products query, where we have this idea of the first or last and the after and before to help find. But building that out is actually what the relay pagination specification takes care of, which we have in our products connection or any model connection query. So I'm going to grab all these fields that we have here because we're going to want to bring those with us. And then instead of products, we're going to go to the product connection query. Products connection. Then we're going to take a look, and this time we'll just do all products instead of doing a specific category. And instead of going directly into the product, we can first start by getting our page information. We can check the page size, whether it has a previous or next, as well as the start and end cursor for our pages. You can see here that each page is going to have 10 items. The first page has no previous page. It does have a next page, and then we get cursors to help us navigate through this. Next, we want to actually list out the data. Each of these data pieces are going to live on the edge of this in the node for each. We're going to grab the cursor so we can examine that, so we can see where we're at in this. And then we're going to actually examine the node. The node is going to be the product itself. And this is where we can bring all that query we had before and get it there. You can also see this got kind of out of sync with our tabs. We can just click the prettify button at the top to take care of that. Now we play that query again, and you can see we have our edges, which is an array of pages. And then on that, we've got our cursor and the node of the product. Also, if you were making pagination, you might care about how many products total match your query. You don't want to have to do an operation on that on your front end. So we've got this aggregate area here where you can also grab the count. And then here it is, here at the bottom, the aggregate is there are 16 products total. So we have a page size of 10. That means that there are 2 pages. How do we get to the second page? Well, we need to take the end cursor from this, and then we can pass that in. So theoretically, you could build these in your front end with the information provided. So we take that end cursor, and we're going to put that into our after clause here as a string, save that in, and our new page size is 6, which matches, 10 plus 6 is the total. And then we have a whole another set of products here. In this case, we do not have a next page, but we do have a previous page. Let's say you want your page size to be different. You can also pass a different argument in. So in this case, we could actually say the first 5 instead of 10, and we'll actually get that there is now a has next page because there's one more page, and then obviously there are previous as well. And then we could just change these cursors and bring them into the query in the filter area here. And then edges and nodes aren't always the most descriptive of words. So if you want to recast these, you absolutely can by putting a string before them and adding a colon. So if we want our edges to maybe be called products, we can put a colon there. And then maybe our node is going to instead be the product details. So we can save that in, we can hit the play button, and now all that data, that array is now products, and each product has a product details object as well. This can make your front end much cleaner and easier to understand than just thinking in nodes and edges, which if you're not familiar with GraphQL can definitely be a confusion point. So that is looking at the products and how we can get pagination as well as just full lists. But let's take a look at getting just the product details of an individual one. When a user clicks those, we'll probably want to pull different details in the front end. So let's take a look at pulling an individual product. So instead of products, we have a product query. And in this case, it's going to take a where clause and it's going to be a little bit more pared down. In this case, we can query by product slug or ID. For the most part, it's probably going to be the slug that we want to see because that's going to be the most user-friendly in the URL and probably what we've got in our application as an identifier. So instead of the ID, we'll use product slug, and in this case, we'll just grab that desk lamp from our data over here, save that in, and you can see it automatically adds the ID in because you do have to have some data come in, and then we can select whatever information we want for this as well. So let's grab the slug name and price again, and here all that exists. Now, in your front end, you're not going to be entering in just a string over and over again. You're probably going to be entering in some sort of variable. In that case, you can use the query variables to do that. This is actually what you'll pass in as a separate object in your query from your front end. In this case, we're going to actually have a slug of colorful socks, which is a different version, just so we can see the difference. And to pass that in, we're going to pass it to our query first, and we're going to say the slug variable is going to be of a type of string, and it will be required. So that's what that exclamation point there means in GraphQL. And then we pass that in. So instead of this being a string, we want it to be that variable. So we'll use that $ again and say slug, and that will be a string. Hit the play button, and now we have our colorful socks details. Now there's a lot more that you can get into in our API. Things such as modular components and remote sources and all sorts of things along those lines. Be sure to kind of use this API playground to explore the deeper connections available here. You can also look at things like having separate locales. We can change our locale from English to Spanish and hit the play button, and we actually get the product name translated for us into the Spanish, which is provided in the model as well. Or we could actually do it with a different token. We have a token that we'll get into in one of the next videos dealing with draft content and getting the draft content. So this one would automatically have that token built in, or take a look at the public API, or as we'll get into later on as well, you can switch over to the management API and actually create your models and create your schema directly inside your application.